And we're going to start, have an evening program if I could just get your attention. Thanks everybody and welcome. It's so good to be back here at Blandin's. It's great to see everybody. What a great crowd, great day. Appreciate you all coming out. I hope you had a wonderful dinner. We had a really nice dinner at our table. And I'm going to now introduce our evening speaker. We're so delighted to have with us tonight a very special presenter. But first I want to just say again that on behalf of the Minnesota Office of Broadband Development and Deed and Blandin Foundation, we're so glad to welcome everybody back to Blandin's for our annual conference. Thanks for being here tonight. And please do also join me in thanking Dana's office for sponsoring tonight's dinner. They were tonight's dinner sponsors. It's really been a privilege and a pleasure to partner with the great Office of Broadband Development staff to put on this conference again this year. I hope everybody had a fun day. There was a lot going on and we got more tomorrow. But right now, it's my real pleasure to introduce tonight our keynote speaker, Alison Grant. And I've had Alison flew in today from out east to be with us here. She's been in the airport in Minnesota, but this is her first visit to northern Minnesota. I'm glad she got here before the sun went down, so got to see the beautiful view out the windows. And welcome, Alison. It's great to have you here. Those of you who were here last year may remember Roberto Gallardo from Purdue University, who gave a keynote presentation. And Alison and her colleagues who authored the study we're going to hear about tonight are colleagues of Roberto's. And when this study came out just a few weeks ago, really, it's quite a brand new publication just within the last month or so, I got on the horn right away and called up Roberto and said, what do you think? Would these study authors be willing to come out to Minnesota and share this important story with us? And so we're really delighted that Alison made her way to be with us tonight. She's a graduate student, a PhD candidate at Purdue University in the Department of Agricultural Economics, and with a Master's of Science degree in Food and Agriculture, and has been a key contributor to this report. And we on the planning committee thought it was so on target for the message that we're trying to help all of us get better telling about how critical broadband is to economic development and prosperity and well-being and the good life, that really delighted that Alison came to tell us. So please join me in welcoming her to the podium.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. So like Bernadine said, I'm a PhD student in agricultural economics at Purdue University. My work is currently focused on rural applied economics. I come from the Greater Toronto area in Canada, and there I did my master's, but I also worked as a research analyst, and I focused on property values and proximity to mining activities in rural areas. So kind of the theme of my overall research is rural. So my colleague, Dr. Wallace Tyner, and I co-wrote the study on monetizing the benefits of rural broadband in the state of Indiana, so that we could compare these benefits to the costs of constructing a statewide rural broadband network. Dr. Larry DeBoer then subsequently estimated the tax revenue benefits from implementing this rural broadband network statewide. So I'd first like to start with the importance of broadband, which is why we're all here. The current media has a host of stories about the digital economy, focusing on the importance of digital access to all people, regardless of geographic location. Not only is it important for economic development and growth, but for overall economic well-being. The Economist magazine called data the fuel for the future. Data are to this century what oil was to the last one, a driver of growth and change. Flows of data have created new infrastructure, new businesses, new monopolies, new politics, and crucially, new economics. Digital information is unlike any previous resource. It is extracted, refined, valued, bought and sold in different ways. It changes the rules for markets and it demands new approaches from regulators. Now let's transform all of that into what that means for broadband, and specifically broadband access in rural areas. It was estimated that there are 12.1 million US households without access to even basic internet, and 6.2 million of those households are in rural areas. Many studies have made it clear that without good connectivity, rural areas can fall into the losing end of the digital divide. Rob Kuttner puts it this way: in the long run, the economic impact of rural broadband will be more important for the role it plays in changing what the economy is. Information technology shows an amazing capability to create new services. It has also disrupted the role that location plays in the economy. Broadband networks have nearly erased the cost of moving information. Broadband networks allow that disruptive role to happen. This disruption will reach as far as the broadband speed required to support these uses will allow. Here, Kuttner is referring to the transformative nature of the digital age. I think it's important to make it clear now that one cannot even envision all of the benefits that high-speed internet provides. I'm here to tell you what we estimated in monetary terms, in terms of benefits we can see with our own eyes. But this result only scratches the surface. I say the benefits are transformative in nature because we cannot even begin to quantify those benefits we cannot see, or those future benefits that we can't even predict. For instance, who knew in the 70s that cellular phones would become not only a means of communication with one another, that most people richer for now have, but a means in which we receive our global news or do our work on a daily basis. I mean, I didn't know this because I wasn't even close to being alive yet, but you get the point. All right, so here's an overview of the information that I will provide for you today from our study. I'll try to skip some of the more procedural technical stuff from our analysis and focus more on the numbers and what those numbers mean. But if you have any questions, please, by all means. I have a lot of the technical slides after if you have any questions. So originally, we wanted to analyze the real-world costs of providing broadband service to households in a targeted multi-county area of Indiana, and estimate the benefits that can accrue to these households and the surrounding economy. We then ended up providing an analysis for the entire state, so I'll tell you how we got there. We were contacted by one rural electric member cooperative, which is Titmont REMC, so Rural Electric Member Cooperative, which is near the area in which Purdue is located. They were interested in getting a study out there that explored the benefit-to-cost ratio in order to bring some substantial numbers to government to express the need for investment. Titmont, upon getting investment, would provide their current electric consumer base with fiber broadband as a package deal. So from the last I heard from them, they will provide a minimum of 200 megabits per second download for approximately $60 a month, bundled in with their electricity bill. So Titmont provided us with all of their real-time cost data, the system, and the operating costs. So after we made a good impression with the study for just this one rural electric cooperative, we were asked to extrapolate to the entire state of Indiana using data from 6 other geographically spaced co-ops throughout the state. So first I'll go into the total numbers, what were the benefits we found, what were the costs. Then I will provide the benefit to cost ratio, the net present value per member of the electric cooperative, the annualized net benefit per member, and then the benefit per $1 expended by customers. So I'll then talk about the extrapolation of the benefits to the state and mention the work added by Dr. Larry DeBoer on the tax and government expenditure impact calculations. So here's a summary of the results. For the entire statewide study, show that the benefit-cost ratio was about 4 to 1. So that is, for every dollar invested in rural broadband, $4 in benefits are returned to the local economy. In other words, $4 is returned for every $1 spent by the rural broadband provider. Statewide, the net benefits, or the benefits minus the costs, amount to $1 billion per year. And in addition to the net benefits, federal and state governments would have increased tax receipts and lower Medicare and Medicaid costs. These tax revenues and cost savings amount to about 1/4 of the total net benefits. So the idea is that some benefits cannot be captured in private markets because they're in the form of externalities or they're considered public goods for which there is actually no market price. However, they do represent genuine economic gains. For instance, if I wanted to get my degree online, there are obvious economic gains such as gas and mileage saved by not driving to campus, but there are not so obvious other economic gains such as possible time saved by not driving, knowledge gained from online learning tools, and applying that education to something useful and productive to the economy. Some of the most important areas for benefits provided in the literature are telemedicine, education, business investment, and general economic development, farm income changes, the civic engagement category, and an increase in property values. So while benefits are not limited to these areas, these represent areas that have received the most attention in the literature. We build on existing literature and establish benefit cost analysis methods to estimate the benefits in these areas. So I'd like to stress right now that wherever necessary, we took the most conservative approach, so as not to inflate the numbers, but there are many circumstances where the benefits are likely higher. The system and operating costs all came directly from the current TIPMOT numbers, and we use these costs such as the cost of line of fiber per mile in the state extrapolation as well. We made some other assumptions, which were a 6% discount rate for estimation of future values. So what I value today, obviously I value that more than I would value 10 years from now, so we discounted that by 6%. And we ended the time horizon at 20 years, even though the benefits would clearly extend beyond that. We used a take rate, which is the percentage of potential customers that sign up for the broadband service, from a very detailed analysis provided by a Purdue willingness to pay study. This was conducted by Dr. Widmar. This take rate starts at 58% in year 3 and is adjusted each year until year 10, and then it stays consistent from year 10 to year 20. So the benefit categories that we did quantify and estimate were telemedicine, education, and we split that up, K-12 education and adult education, consumer savings, farm income increases, and multiplier benefits. So multiplier benefits are, in a way, the spillover benefits from each of these categories. And general economic development is included in this multiplier. And I'm going to go into detail on what these categories were. This might be hard to see, but the important thing is this $560 million in net benefits, and this is for year 3, and this is just for the TIPMOT cooperative. So those are all the categories there, but I'm going to go into them. I put all of these numbers into a graph, and it lists them as the percentage of the total net benefits, or the total benefits, sorry, to give you an idea of the shares of the benefit categories. So telemedicine actually comprises of the largest proportion of benefits at 30%. And this is followed by multiplier impacts, consumer savings and adult education, the system revenue category, K-12 education, and farm income increases. And so the system revenue category is the money coming from the consumer once the fiber is up and running. So we can divide the total net present value by the number of TIPMOT customers to produce a per customer net present value of approximately $25,000. So that's the net present value benefit per member. And on an annualized basis, this amounts to an annual net benefit per customer of approximately $2,000. So again, every dollar invested in broadband returns $4 to the local economy. That's at 3.96. Another metric that could be used is to deduct net present value of Titmont revenues from the net present value of benefits, and then divide that number by the net present value of revenues. So that ratio is 4.5 and represents the ratio of benefits received per dollar spent by Titmont customers. If we take Titmont revenue and divide by the cost incurred to them specifically, the ratio is 0.54. So this result highlights the fact that many of the benefits accrue to the local economy and not to the broadband provider. So thus, this is a clear example of a case for which public support is needed to achieve that high level of public benefits possible from the broadband investment. So I'd like to take a step inside each of these benefit categories just to give you an idea of how we calculated them. So we split up these categories in benefits that either accrue to the provider or accrue to the patient. So this is in telemedicine. So please keep in mind that I'll present the benefits with a Titmont service area, but know that these numbers with specific data relating to the other cooperatives were created for all the other cooperatives. But I'm just going to use Titmont as an example. So each cooperative yielded separate numbers depending on their own customer base. We relied heavily here on a recent study from Anthem, and it was done specifically in Indiana, so it was perfect for us. This study had a treatment group, so a group that received telemedicine, and then they had a control group, so those were those seeing a doctor in person. They found that the health incomes over a few months were actually identical across both groups. And they found that much fewer tests were actually ordered for those patients receiving care through the internet. So when telemedicine is used effectively, benefits can accrue through reducing physicians' time required for treatment and diagnosis, reduced use of emergency room and other expensive hospital facilities, transportation savings for patients. And this was actually calculated using the actual distance from the customers to the nearest hospital or the nearest care provider. Missed work income savings that could be involved. Initial health consultation via the web. So if any of you have used a telemedicine service, you kind of just type in your symptoms and they send you to the right doctor that you need depending on what your symptoms are. Then the health improvement and the improved health knowledge and improved self-care that came out of the study. So that total value of telemedicine was $20.5 million in year 3. And I use year 3 in these because this is when the benefits can be fully realized, and that's used in the literature of cost-benefit analysis studies. And then over that 20-year time horizon, that would be $223 million. So the education category. There are numerous possibilities for benefits in education. Massive online courses are only possible with broadband access. Computer classes are generally less expensive and more cost-effective than traditional classroom-based learning. And with rural broadband, citizens have access to lower cost but effective education and job skill upgrade options. Today, students can complete and turn in their homework exercises via the web. For example, I was actually supposed to teach a class today, but I had to travel, so I made an online video lesson for my students and an online assignment, so it was like I'd never even left and I didn't have to actually miss a class and they didn't have to miss a class. So online education increases the number of learning environments as well. Different people have different styles of learning, and online learning adds to that diversity and is proven to enhance learning outcomes. And I can't even count the number of times that people have told me they learned something in seconds from a YouTube video. So there's a lot of benefit in that. So this is the education K-12 category, and we estimated that separately from the adult education category. So we decided to assume a productivity increase based on education expenses for teacher salaries and benefits. So we called the school districts in order to get the budget for K-12 teacher salaries and benefits. We believed it was reasonable to assume a 5% improvement in teacher function and with the increased ability to use high-speed internet in the classroom. So that's how that category was calculated. This approach also made the very conservative assumption that the educational value provided by teachers is worth what it costs and no more, which we know that's not really true. obtaining a high school diploma pays off many times its cost. So the benefit estimation ended up being $1.5 million in year 3. From the literature, we found that, this is adult education, okay. So this is also a rapidly growing segment of the total education market. A good example is Purdue's recent acquisition of Kaplan, which allows Purdue to be a major player on the distance education market. This was an area that was hard to quantify, so we used median household income of the Titmont service area, and then in each respective co-op area for the statewide analysis, and we assumed that a higher percentage would get college degrees. And we actually had a survey for the Titmont area, and this stated that 46% of our sample had listed high school as their highest form of education. So we assumed that 1 in those 5 households would get newer, better jobs valued at 5% of the household income. The benefits amounted to $9.6 million in year 3. So from the literature, we also found that rural broadband adoption leads to improved median household incomes and an increased share of non-farm rural businesses. However, we decided to assume it's included in the adult education and multiplier categories. So this other category, the multiplier benefits, so another category of income increase for any type of economic investment is what is called this multiplier benefits. These benefits essentially derive from the fact that any investment induces spending and income increases elsewhere in the local economy. So the well-established literature provided multipliers ranging from 0.99 to 1.99. So we actually chose that 0.99 just to keep it on the lower end. And so that multiplier net present value ranged from 188 million, which was the base case, is what we actually use. And then we used a sensitivity analysis with those other multiplier benefits. So it ranged all the way up to 376 million in year 3. Many studies estimate the consumer savings from internet connection in insurance, energy, general shopping, and for services online. Many people are saving more money than ever just by having access to sites like Amazon where you can compare item prices. So we used a study that estimates household savings per year and apply that to get a benefit of almost 10 million in year 3. And this is for the Titmont service area again. So here, one can imagine a myriad of ways in which rural broadband access would lead to increased farm profitability, easier communications with supplier and market outlets, access to extension and other farm practice information, quicker access to weather data that could impact management decisions, and generally improve farm management practices. So the studies that we looked at found things like greater access to useful information, technology such as geographic information systems, scouting drones, and precision agriculture. So we tried to measure this by an increase in total farm revenue, enhancing their ability to find new customers and enabling farmers to get better prices for their outputs. We measured total agricultural crop sales in the county where Titmont is located, this is Tippecanoe County, and induced a profit increase over time, yielding a benefit estimation of over $600,000 in year 3. So the civic engagement category, it included things like development and use of rural social networks, and in stimulating volunteer activity and community involvement. As we have no doubt that these are genuine benefits, we were unable to quantify this category. As you can probably imagine, it's a pretty difficult category to quantify. So we left out this category in our analysis, but we just wanted to say that it is indeed a category. So I just wanted to throw up the cost data provided to us by Titmont, just to show you what's involved on the cost side. So there's that distribution fiber, core network, substation electronics, drop installation, subscriber electronics, and that total build capital cost. And then in the operating costs, you probably can't see this, but I just threw it up there to show you kind of the complexity of the operating costs. So there's categories like fixed, labor, subscribers, revenue, tax, billing, marketing, access fee, those sorts of things. So just to give you another recap, all of these numbers so far have been for the Titmont Rural Electric Cooperative. The total net present value was over $560 million over the 20-year time horizon. And we can divide the total net present value by the number of Titmont customers to produce a per customer net present value of approximately $25,000. On an annualized basis, this amounts to an annual net benefit per customer of approximately $2,000 per year. And again, every dollar invested in broadband returns $4 to that local economy. And if we take Titmont revenue and divide by the cost incurred to them, the ratio is 0.54. So that result highlights the fact that while large benefits are estimated, many accrue to the general public and not that broadband provider. So this suggests that investment in rural broadband is vital for rural areas in Indiana and possibly states like Minnesota, and should be seriously considered by state and federal governments. So that was all for Titmont, but then we replicated this for 6 other geographically spaced co-ops, and we used the total number of cooperative members in the state. We estimated the total net benefit per member in all 7 co-ops, and multiplied by the total number of members in the rural electric cooperatives. So, the net present value per member was also around $25,000, and this is using data from all the other cooperatives. And then we extrapolated this number to the rest of the members, which is about 400,000 members of rural electric cooperatives in Indiana. So that's the members aside from those 6 co-ops, or for 7 co-ops, because it's 6 plus Titmont. So in total, the net benefits amounted to $12 billion. And looking at our time horizon and discount rate, that's $1 billion in benefits per year in the state of Indiana. So it came up to kind of a nice round number, $1 billion. So as you can see in this overview, the benefit cost ratios range from 2.97 to 4.09, so they actually go greater than the Titmont study. So from a societal perspective, the rural broadband investment is clearly quite attractive. These are just the other counties, or the other cooperatives that we used. So in addition to the benefit cost analysis, I said I would present some of the results from the tax addendum that was written by my colleague, Dr. Larry DeBoer. He quantified the additional state and federal tax collections and cost savings that would happen with broadband investment in just these 7 cooperatives. So this can be helpful in looking at total societal savings if the broadband investment occurs. Essentially, if rural residents see added incomes from broadband use, tax revenue may increase, and this goes for federal, state, and state sales taxes, which were all calculated separately. And then that cost savings side of things would come from the Medicare and Medicaid programs. So both of the added revenue and cost savings methods amounted to $56.5 million in year 3. And you can see here that the value is split up by federal, state, and Medicare and Medicaid cost savings. So that Medicare and Medicaid is that $8.6 million. So this value accounts for 27% of the total net benefits in year 3, which provides some good evidence of the tax benefits to state and federal governments when implementing rural broadband. And here Larry just broke it out by the different cooperatives, the year 3 net benefit, the total federal, total state of Indiana, and the total federal and state. So that's the summary of the revenue plus the cost savings together. So as you can see, there's that $56 million for the total federal and state. So what has been the impact of this study? So it was recently announced that the state of Indiana will invest $100 million in rural broadband just in this year. And they cited this study I just presented to you as the rationale behind the investment. In 1936, the Rural Electrification Act was passed, and the country started to get electricity out to all rural areas in America. Electrification of rural areas only happened because government subsidized it. and those benefits are still realized today. We can see a great parallel between that time and now, but just substituting electricity for high-speed internet access. The state of Indiana shares this sentiment as we are now into the construction phases so that rural residents of Indiana can get the internet they need to thrive. So that's all I have. If any of you have any questions or comments, yeah?
Can we get the slideshow plus your full study?
Yes.
Yes, there's full studies right here.
Well, electronically.
Yes, yeah. So pcrd.com. It's just on it's the Purdue Center for Regional Development. All the publications are there. So there's the publication for the statewide analysis, the publication for just Tippmont, and then there's the literature review on where we got the numbers for our own studies.
And I linked to your study on our webpage for this conference, so we'll send out a link with the conference and cafeterias.
Yeah.
I think towards the beginning you said $1 investment yielded $4 worth of benefits. Was there a time frame that was over?
Yeah, so that's over the 20-year time horizon.
It was. Okay.
Yeah. So we know it goes greater than that, but we had to stop the study somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
The overall net value in that area of agriculture was much lower than some of the other areas.
Yeah.
As an ag student, how did you feel about that?
Yeah, well, I think we just couldn't quantify that total category. What we could measure was just the farm income increase, but there's so much more to that, I think. So I think there's just areas that we couldn't quantify, but it would be a much bigger category in reality if we could get those numbers. Yeah.
You had a number of areas where you talked about various benefits where you said you assumed a certain percentage benefit, 5% or whatever.
Yeah.
Without saying where that came from.
Yeah. Yeah, so a lot of this came from the literature. So you can see in our reports where it came from. So it'll be like some other studies, and we could list 5, also assumed a 5% income increase. And so we adopted that. And then in areas where there wasn't previous literature, we had to kind of just guess, make some conservative guesses, like we tried to not go overboard on them. Yeah. But that's the nature of cost-benefit analysis, yeah. Great. Well, thank you, everyone.